This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now from Studio B, your hosts, Spencer Linton and Jason Shepard.
Oh, BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play back in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Tuesday, May 10th, wherever and however you have chosen to connect. Wonderful to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up alongside a man who has very simply volunteered his quarterbacking capabilities to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers upon Tom Brady's actual retirement. His name is Jason Shepard.
Look, here's my rationale. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. When you've had the GOAT as your quarterback, you can't follow that up with somebody better, right? It's in the name. It's the GOAT. So I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to go the opposite direction.
They're going to tank.
They're going to tank, and I can't think of somebody who's more opposite in terms of athleticism, winning ability at the NFL level than Tom Brady, than me. So that's kind of my play. Do you understand the rationale?
I do understand that. I don't know that Tampa Bay wants to fully embrace that, Jason.
I'm just saying I'm throwing it out there.
I mean, we'll see.
My services.
Okay.
Okay.
They want to tank. They signed Jason Shepard to be the quarterback.
I'm just saying, like, if you want to up the draft potential.
By the way, have you seen Tom Brady's TikTok account, Jason? I know you're a big TikToker.
I'm not a talker. I don't know if that's what they call them.
Tom Brady has figured out social media.
He really has.
He's figured out everything.
Or his people have.
It's brilliant.
But no, I have not seen it.
It's absolutely brilliant.
What is something specific? Or
I just want you to get a TikTok account so you can follow Tom Brady. Because if you're truly going to replace him, you need to replace him on all accounts.
I don't know if I could follow Tom Brady, though. he
on anything?
And he's hurt me. He's hurt me. Not like he hasn't hurt a lot of other franchises.
What about his combine picture? Would you follow that one up?
You know, to be perfectly honest with you, that's the one area that I've got Tom Brady on.
You feel like you
there's no question. There's no question I would look better in a combine photo than that picture of Tom Brady.
Which is why he keeps asking Elon Musk, the new owner of Twitter,
delete that.
to take it away.
Yeah.
Can we please take it away?
Yes.
Here's your show lineup. I can't promise that there won't be more Tom Brady. I can promise that we are going to discuss, in your opinion, what will be the fastest sport to ascend to prominence at BYU once the Cougars get into the Big 12. A weighty discussion right there. Also, the newest member of the BYU basketball team, Rudi Williams, joins us live to discuss why he picked BYU and why ultimately, Jason, he made the right decision to leave Coastal Carolina and come to BYU.
He didn't like teal.
He saw the light. He saw the light.
He did not like the way Zach Wilson was treated.
Exactly. Come on. Plus, Top 5 Tuesday features the top 5 almost great plays of the BYU football season. I love this. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
BYU softball hosting Utah State tonight in a Tuesday night matchup at Gale Miller Field. You can watch the game at 8 Eastern on the BYU TV app as the Cougars look to continue their 13-game winning streak. You and I will be on the call tonight.
West Coast Conference Player of the Week, Austin Deming, and the 27-18 BYU baseball team take on Dixie State tonight, 7 Eastern. You can watch it live on the BYU TV app or listen on BYU Radio.
Women's golf finished the first round of the NCAA Regionals in 9th place after shooting 10 over as a team. Leela Nalai leads the Cougars at 1 over par, tied for 19th overall. Second round underway right now. You can follow all the action on the team's Instagram account, which is at BYUW Golf.
BYU women's track and field remains in the top 10 at number 8, while the men hold on to their spot at number 13. Speaking of 13, there are 13 athletes ranked in the top 10 nationally in their respective events. Last chance meet this weekend in preparation for nationals. Competition begins on Friday.
Women's basketball signing Sophia Lee, a 5'7" shooting guard out of St. Mary's High School in Stockton, California. Lee will join the program for the upcoming basketball season.
And congratulations to BYU men's lacrosse, who advanced in the national championship tournament. They beat TCU 18-6 in the first round of the MCLA championship bracket. They'll take on USC today at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're interested, follow the action on the team's Twitter account at BYU Lacrosse. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
Your You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
What's Trending, proudly presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living. Learn more at bodyguards.com. BYU is roughly 15 months away from full inclusion in the Big 12 Conference, Jason. I know that you are counting down the hours, probably the minutes.
The seconds, actually.
Okay, I sold yourself short there. Okay, which BYU team, after 15 months, when the Big 12 invitation is complete and BYU's fully integrated, which BYU team will rise to prominence the fastest in the Big 12?
See, this is why this is a little different, because normally a question like this, you have to sit and ponder. You know, you maybe have to reflect a little bit. This one was super easy for me.
Really?
Like, it didn't even take a half a second before I had my answer. For me, the answer is women's volleyball.
Okay.
Immediately out of the gate, I think women's volleyball has the best chance to hit the ground running and immediately be in contention day one.
Even with Texas in the conference for the first 2 years.
Yeah, I think women's volleyball is that team. And look, speaking of Texas, we already know that there's a pretty good little rivalry going on between BYU and Texas. And I'm not talking about, football in terms of schools. I'm talking about in women's volleyball. They've met. We know that it looked like BYU was going to advance. Texas comes back and knocks BYU out of the tournament. So there's that already. But I just went and looked at the D1 women's volleyball rankings according to the AVCA coaches, the final rankings last year. And I just looked at where BYU was and where the Big 12 teams were. The first Big 12 team, to nobody's surprise, is Texas.
Okay.
So you go in assuming Texas is right there at the top, day one.
For at least 2 years.
For at least 2 years when BYU comes in. But you know who was number 2 in the rankings? Now, 9 in the rankings, but in terms of all of the Big 12 schools and BYU?
It's BYU.
It's BYU.
Yes.
BYU was number 9. Then right behind BYU at 10th was Baylor. I think day one, BYU goes in and is immediately in contention for conference championships, the very first match they ever play. And then when Texas goes, if BYU hasn't already surpassed them in the 2 years, BYU, in my mind, then immediately goes to that top rung.
Okay, it's become very clear upon review of all of the BYU sports and where they will fit in the current Big 12 as we project over the next 15 months that the women's sports at BYU, in large part, Jason, are already there. It's not just women's volleyball. It's women's soccer, women's basketball we feel like will compete, women's track and field, women's cross country. The women's sports feel like they're ready to go right now in the Big 12. And that leads me to my answer, because it's a program that's already there. It's men's and women's cross country. They're already there, Jason. They're already at the top. So whether they're competing in the West Coast Conference or competing in the Big 12, literally in the last 3 years, they're winning national championships on the individual basis, and in the men's case, as a team. And then the women's team also, national champions. Let's go. They're the runners-up this year. So if you just look at the teams in the Big 12 right now, plug and play, the women's team would be atop the Big 12. The men's team, based on last year's finishes, would have been third behind Iowa State and Oklahoma State. But if you go the year before that, or the year before that, you could make an argument that BYU men are the best team in the Big 12. So, again, it's not like, cross country. We know that cross country is not, for discussion, the sexiest sport because it's not a quote-unquote big money sport. But if we're talking a program that's ready to rise to prominence, they're already there. Like men's and women's cross country are already there. They're already at the top, Jason.
Look, we realize that the two prominent sports, football and basketball, they're the driving force in all of this. But I think what we've just discussed once again re-emphasizes what BYU is bringing to the table in terms of an entire athletic department.
Just see the Learfield Cup standings.
And I agree with you 100%. It is pretty interesting to look at most of the teams that we talk about that probably, they're on the women's side. Look at what the women's sports on campus are doing and the position that they've set themselves up in to jump into this conference. Now, in terms of where BYU men's basketball, in terms of where BYU football is, I think let's just start with BYU football. We've said this before. I think BYU goes in and it starts right in the, I would say in the middle of the pack is kind of where you start. And that's not anything that would be looked at as a negative. You're going into a conference that you've never played in before. That is to be expected, that there is going to be a learning curve in this. Does that mean that they can't win immediately? Well, of course not.
Especially if Jaron Hall decides to stay for his senior year.
Absolutely. But I think that's where, if you're just saying, okay, just eyeballing it, where do they come in? They are, in my opinion, they are not the bottom part of the Big 12. I think they start right in the middle, and then you begin the climb up the conference. So to me, that's, I think, where football goes. Basketball, we know the conference that it's jumping into. It's the best basketball conference in the NCAA. So we don't know. And right now, we don't even know what the roster is going to look like in terms of what's going in there.
Basketball-wise, every team in the Big 12 last year finished, I think, 86 or better in the net rankings. Every single team in the Big 12. All 10. The worst team had a net ranking of 86, and that's out of 351 Division I basketball teams. Every night is going to be a battle in the Big 12 when it comes to men's basketball. So no question, like, it's not saying that, oh, BYU's they're just not on par. They're not good enough. Come on. The transition is notable because they're playing now in the toughest conference.
Yes.
There are 3 Gonzagas, and there are 3 St. Mary's within the Big 12.
Yeah, the issue that BYU has dealt with, look, and let's be honest, and BYU has lost to some of these teams. We've seen this every year, where the bottom part of the conference kind of pulls everybody else down. That's not the case in the Big 12. It's just not.
Yeah, BYU could be like 75th in the net rankings and be like second to worst in that metric in the Big 12. That is a reality.
Right.
So on the men's side, as I was looking, I'm like, okay, the women's sports clearly, as we've stated, are crushing it right now. They're ready. They're ready to make the move and compete immediately within the Big 12. I know some of you are saying, well, you said women's basketball. What about Baylor and Oklahoma? Did BYU women's basketball not go on the road and play Oklahoma to an overtime game that they probably should have won last year? Like, BYU's not that far off from women's basketball either.
No.
I know Baylor's another level, but like, the Cougars are right there. They're in the top tier of the Big 12, even in women's basketball. On the men's side, like, well, which sport's going to get it done? I mentioned cross country and track and field. Okay, outside of that, Jason, like, what's the answer? I don't know. Is it football? Like, are the expectations shifting now to the point where it's like, okay, football after track and field will be the team that will next make the fastest ascension? Because
it could be.
We just talked about basketball. Like, oh man, it feels near impossible. Baseball's, that's a loaded conference in baseball. What's the road for BYU baseball? I don't know. I don't know. Is it football? Is football the next fastest sport on the men's side behind track and field to make the ascension? It might be.
It could be. And look, a lot of it's going to depend on how things shake out in terms of what the schedules look like. Are they going to go to divisions? Are you just going to play? I mean, because if you are in there's not going to be an easy division, but obviously there in all likelihood there's probably going to be, at least out of the gate, an easier division if that's what they decide to go. And now I'm not even sure that they're going to do that anymore, but depends on who you're going to face every year, what type of competition that you're going to have in your division. So I mean, all of that stuff plays into it, but I don't think you're crazy to say that it may be football that would be that next team.
Right. Well, and there are several definitions to ascension, right? Like what is the top tier? What is prominence within the Big 12?
Are we talking about winning a conference championship?
Yeah, what is the word we use to ask the initial question is prominence. What is prominence defined within the Big 12? Is that top 3?
See, I think it's top 3. I
is
think
it winning the championship?
Well, that certainly is. That's the apex of it all. But I think if you're talking about ascending to prominence, I think you're certainly top 2. But you could probably make a case for top 3. If you're the upper echelon, the top 3 in a division, especially if it's really, really good, which we expect the Big 12 to be, then yeah, I would categorize that as ascending.
To prominence.
To prominence.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You know who the third place team in the Big 12 was last year? It was Oklahoma.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to play them for 2 years.
So if that is prominence, yeah, top 3, Oklahoma was the third best team in the Big 12 last year. Like, if BYU is on that level, are we calling that prominent?
I am.
I would think so, right?
I'm going to call it prominence.
You're a top 20 team. You're the third best in a Power 5 conference. Let's go. It's just wild that BYU football right now, you think middle of the pack. Okay?
Well, I think that's just realistic where you go in. You could be higher, you could be lower. I'm going to say that you go in and you're in the middle of the pack day one. Now, what you do with that remains to be seen.
Right, but right now, if we are looking at BYU as a preseason top 20 team,
yes,
are they not already in a position? If they were to be moving into the Big 12 this year, would they already be in a position of prominence if they are a preseason top 20 team?
Okay, but what does that mean? Where does that put them, though, in the Big 12? Where does it put them?
Yeah, it depends on what teams in the Big 12 are preseason ranked.
That all depends.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, I love that we're discussing this.
Let's bring it.
I love the conversation that's happening.
Is it July of 2023 already?
Our question of the day, which BYU team will rise to prominence the fastest in the Big 12 and why? Let's go to Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
Takanur on Twitter answers all of them should be competitive. Sure. But cross-country and women's soccer are already at an elite level and should see immediate success. I would add women's volleyball to the elite level. That's your opinion.
I would.
Right? Okay.
In my opinion, I think it's a no-brainer.
Ben Peterson on Twitter says, since they have already been winning championships, track and field and cross-country were the first to come to mind for me. Right after that would be BYU women's volleyball and soccer. I think these teams already have the talent needed to compete at that level. This is a major props that we're giving to BYU women's sports for what they have accomplished.
They've earned it.
They have earned every bit of this. Like the women's sports, in large part, are just ready. Let's go. Like they could go and win championships right now.
And that's why every year when we see what the schedule comes out, regardless of what the schedule is and who they're playing, we just kind of expect them to be there in the end because they always are. That's just the way it is.
Hashtag BYUSN on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right, coming up, we're talking uniforms. Are you a bigger fan of shiny or matte finish helmets?
And the newest BYU basketball commit, Rudi Williams, on why he ultimately made the decision to come to Provo and leave Conway, South Carolina. This is BYU Sports Nation. It had something to do with Cosmo, didn't it?
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Bodyguards. Protection for a life worth living.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
Dexter & Dexter is a full-service law firm offering a wide range of legal services. Since 1995, we have helped more than 20,000 Utahns both to navigate life's challenges and to make the most of life's opportunities. From auto accidents to criminal defense, and from bankruptcy to family law, we are passionate about shouldering your burdens. To learn more about scheduling a no-obligation consultation, visit dexterlaw.com.
Luxurious blanket. Getting cozy with family and friends. A gift for everyone. Minky Couture, official luxury blanket of BYU Athletics.
Follow the ups and downs of elite young gymnasts in an exclusive behind-the-scenes look as they twist, flip, and bounce their way to the podium. See the commitment, effort, and mindset it takes for these competitors to rule their sport on Gym Stars, on BYU TV, or on the free app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Baseball hosting Dixie State tonight, 7 Eastern time. You can watch the game on the BYU TV app or listen live with Greg Wrubell on the BYU radio app.
We are live at Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton. To my left sits Jason Shepard. I want to call an audible, Jason, because there is much to discuss. And let's whip it. The Cougar Whip Around presented by Maersk, your integrated container logistics company enabling global trade for a growing world.
All right, Spencer, we referenced this a little bit earlier in the program. Fox Sports announcing this morning that they have agreed to a deal with Tom Brady to become their lead football analyst whenever he retires.
Brilliant move by Fox.
Absolutely. So what will happen first? Tom Brady calls a game for Fox, or Colin Chandler plays his first game at BYU. As we know, he's getting ready to go on his mission at the end of July.
So Colin Chandler is slated to play his first game at BYU in the fall of 2023? 2024?
24, I believe.
Is that right?
He would go July of 2022.
Yes.
Yes, so it'll be the fall of 2024.
Okay. Yeah, Tom Brady's going to call a game for Fox before then. Like, if Tom Brady is still a starting quarterback in the 2024 season, that gives him all of this year and all of next year. So at least 2 more years in the league. How old is he, 44?
He will be 45, I think, before the season starts.
If he's a starting quarterback at 48...
Look, if anybody can, it's him. I think, look, the answer is clearly Tom Brady.
Tom Brady will call a game on Fox before Colin Chandler is playing his first game at BYU in the fall of 2024.
Yeah, look, Tom Brady's going to call a game before the fall of 2024. And
Tom's not going to be a starting quarterback at 48.
This feels like this is now done. Now you play your last year, and now you have something to do. You have something to go to. I would be surprised. I'm surprised he's playing now after retiring. But I would be surprised if he plays beyond next year. Now that this is set, it kind of sets everything else up.
He's going to be 45.
Yeah.
And the Bucs are going to have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. How about that? You said GOAT. It's 1,000,000% true.
He's the GOAT.
All right, Jason, speaking of football, BYU and their equipment department is seeking their own GOAT status. They've got a new man in town. His name is Josh Hewitt, working with Billy Nixon. He came from UNLV. He tweeted out this following photo of the shiny royal blue helmets, saying game ready. Now, Jason, do you prefer the shiny royal or the matte royal that we saw last year?
I feel very, very, what's the right word? Well, I feel very strongly about my answer to this. Let's be perfectly honest. The important part is the royal. The royal helmet is just fantastic.
Okay.
I am not a shiny helmet guy.
Really?
I don't like the shine.
Really?
Yeah, I am a matte finish guy. I am a sucker for a matte finish. I absolutely love it.
Okay.
And I believe that the only 2 in the NFL are Cleveland and Minnesota.
Okay.
I think those are the only 2 that have a matte finish, and I love it. I absolutely. So look, I love this.
Okay.
I love it. It's the royal helmet. That's the important part. Shiny matte doesn't matter. I love it. But if I had my choice, I will always choose the matte finish.
Wow. See, I thought you were a guy that would be all about the shine and the sparkle.
There's just something about that matte finish that gets me every time. I love it.
So I like the navy helmets better with a matte finish compared to a shiny navy helmet. But when it comes to royal blue, I am all about the shiny royal. All about it. I love the chrome face mask.
Throwing shade on the matte.
No, I said I like the matte finish on the navy helmet. I think that is a really, really clean look. But with the royal, it just needs to pop. It needs to pop. And so why downplay it with matte?
See,
make it shiny.
Here's my thing. Here's like the thing about the shine that has always bugged me on any helmet. It's not just BYU, on any helmet. Is that you always see the light ring above.
Isn't that awesome?
No, I don't like that.
What?
I don't like that.
Set the ambiance?
No. I don't like the light ring above.
You don't want the idea of playing under the lights in a big-time atmosphere?
I don't need to see them on top of the helmet to know that there are lights on.
If it's black or if it's dark navy blue, the matte finish is so clean. But when it's a bright color like royal blue, Give me the show.
Look, to be honest, if Josh wanted to hook me up with a shiny royal blue helmet, I would take it. I'm just Josh. And look, and we're BFFs now. We're both Chiefs fans, so
hey,
let's keep that in mind, Josh.
On par. He's putting it out there. All right, Jason, let's move on.
All right, staying with football, the Atlanta Falcons tweeted out photos of their Day 3 draft picks. It just so happened that one of those photos is of Tyler Algier.
In the matte black helmet?
In the matte black. So I guess Atlanta has a matte black, too.
That's great.
I missed that one. Do you like Algier's look in black, red, and white?
Absolutely. Like, how awesome does Tyler look?
He looks kind of menacing. I like it.
It's fantastic.
He looks dangerous.
The mostly black with a little bit of red trim and the white, that is such a clean uniform combination.
Yep.
Tyler looks fantastic in that getup.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And look, regardless of whatever color it was, he was going to look good in it because he's in the NFL.
So cool to see him.
Yes, it's awesome. And he's in such a good fit. Yeah. He's actually going to have a legitimate chance to get on the field and play significant minutes.
Yeah, dare I say, in year 1 of the NFL, he'll be above average, which leads us to our next question.
Bring it.
Yesterday, Mark Durant tweeted out the following. Guys like me never get to be on any all-time lists. So give me your all-time average BYU players starting 5. Jason, would Mark Durant make your BYU all-time average players starting 5?
I have no idea how to answer this because I love Mark Durant. I feel like if I put him on an average list, that's a slam, and I think too highly of Mark Durant because everything about Mark Durant is above average in terms of being a human being, a guy, funny.
Except for his ability to play college basketball?
I just, sure, if he wants to be on it, I would put him on there. But again, I think of him so much more above average than that.
Sure, in all things, right?
Yes.
We're talking about his BYU basketball career specifically, though, and he pointed it out. He wanted this.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm going to grant him a starting 5 position on my all-time average player team.
All right, last one. Kingsley Suamataia tweeted out a picture of his toenails.
Yep.
Freshly painted with a Y on one of them with the following caption, "Now I'm ready for the week, pregame routine." It really does beg the question, Spencer, who did the nail painting better, you or Kingsley? You want to show those off again?
Only one of us, I believe, had Rudi Williams, who is a certified manicurist.
You can show those off again?
Yeah, they're still here, okay? As much as I like his block Y, like the stretch Y and the Nike sign that Taylor put together here, come on! It's a clear win right here. And I can't believe I'm staking my claim in that type of win. Oh, Kingsley, my painted fingernails are better than your painted toenails.
Look, here's the deal. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little jealous that I wasn't around to be able to do that.
I do like the alternating navy and white that he has.
It's pretty cool. Yes, it is pretty cool.
But again, shiny royal, Jason. You want to know why I like the shiny royal helmet?
Yeah.
To see my fingernails.
All right, coming up, how about we look into the upcoming BYU football schedules?
Yes. Specifically, the 2025 schedule as it stands right now, and the newest BYU basketball commit, Rudi Williams, on why he chose BYU. It had to be Cosmo as part of it, right?
When my grandfather started this company in 1947, he couldn't have envisioned what we would ultimately become. We realized that our value to our customers is that we will be there day after day, year after year, doing whatever we need to find solutions to the challenges that they face. We are committed to be honestly better in all that we do, in every opportunity that we have to serve our customers.
Accidents don't just happen 9 to 5. They happen when you least expect them. The team at Siegfried & Jensen is here for you 24/7. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour. Really here for you. No matter when you call us, you'll speak to a real person and have access to the same expertise and personal attention as always, and get the legal help you need when you need it. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour, 24/7.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
Turn TV time into together time with the BYU TV app. Watch all your favorite shows when, where, and how you want.
This isn't like a practical joke, is it?
No, sir. Immerse yourself in stories with all the feels. Go on uninterrupted journeys of discovery and see families coming together while watching with your own. See new and original content, all for free on the BYU TV app.
BYU Sports Nation is brought to you by Maersk, enabling global trade for a growing world.
BYU softball hosts Utah State tonight at 8 Eastern Time. Watch the game live on the BYU TV app with Spencer and me.
He is Jason, I am Spencer, and this is BYU Sports Nation right now. Yes, softball to come later tonight. To interact with the show and get content throughout the day, follow us on all of the major social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Joining us now is the newest member of the BYU basketball team from the transfer portal, leaving Coastal Carolina to join Mark Pope and BYU. His name is Rudi Williams. Rudy, I feel like every time I say your name since you've announced, we should break out the Rudy chant. I don't know, but I know BYU fans are super excited to have you. How does it feel to be a part of BYU Sports Nation?
Man, so far, it's been super exciting. It's been super fun. The fans they've showed me nothing but love the entire time. Even during the process before I even announced that I was going to come to Provo and all that. So, it's just been super cool, and I'm happy to be embraced by Cougar Nation.
Well, you were telling us before we started the interview that because you're still in Myrtle Beach, you're still wrapping things up before you head out this direction. Said you're playing pickup with the guys, and they were giving you a bit of a hard time for coming to BYU, huh?
Yeah, they were, but I threw the Y up after I made a couple shots. And, it's all love though. The guys, they're still my guys.
I would like to point out that you are the second Canadian in as many days that have been our feature guest. Talk to us about your backdrop with Canada. Where'd you grow up in Canada, and how'd you make your way into the United States to Kansas State and to Coastal Carolina?
Well, I'm originally from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. That's just a little bit outside of the Toronto area, probably about 30 minutes outside of Toronto. And when I was about 16, I asked permission from my mom if I could, move to America and go to a basketball school, obviously in pursuit of a scholarship. And, by the grace of God, she let me, because I don't know how many parents would let their 16-year-old irresponsible son, leave the country and go live somewhere to go get a scholarship. But thankfully she did that. I did 2 years in the junior college ranks. And then after junior college, I went to Kansas State. After Kansas State, I transferred to Coastal, and now here we are right now.
So we obviously know how big hockey is in the country of Canada. Was hockey ever an emphasis for you? Was that ever something that piqued your interest, or has it always been basketball?
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I cannot skate to save my life. So I don't know if hockey would have paid the bills, honestly. I knew a little bit about it. Obviously growing up, it was everywhere growing up. But I never got involved. I've never even been to a skating rink ever.
Hey, listen.
It was basketball. I played a little soccer, too.
It's all good because you can just put defenders on skates, right? You can get your hockey feel by putting guys on skates on the basketball court.
Hey, don't feel bad, Rudy. I've never been on skates. I've never been ice skating. I've been roller skating, but no ice skating. So you're not alone in that, Rudy.
Yeah, I was always just afraid of hurting my ankle or something like that, because those things, I don't know, they're dangerous. I can't. They're just not for me, honestly.
Rudi Williams is with us on BYU Sports Nation. We noticed that Cosmo was a part of your photo shoot when you were at BYU. How did you pull that off?
Okay, so I was, getting ready to come to Provo for my official visit, and the coaches were asking me if I needed anything, and it was always in the back of my head, but I didn't want to be that high maintenance guy. But I was like, listen, I asked Coach Pope, I asked Coach Figure, I was like, listen, this is my one, spoiled request. And, you know, they were like, you know, it's no problem. You know, we got you. And, you know, when I came to the Pro Bowl and did my photo shoot, he was down there waiting for me in the studio. So I was like, it was the craziest thing to me. And, you know, after seeing him on the internet all the time, I was like, wow. I was like, that's actually him. I'm a big fan of him. And, you know, I was excited.
How did you first find out about Cosmo?
Just through the internet, TikTok, really. Like, this was, you know, before the transfer portal stuff, you know, I'm on my feed and some BYU stuff came up, and then I seen Cosmo and I was like, this dude's insane. You know, he's doing all these tricks, the Ao and Teo thing. I was like, wow, you know, he's number one for sure, honestly.
So obviously, besides Cosmo and the role he played, what was the determining factor? Why was BYU the place for you?
Honestly, just the coaching staff, you know, they were really authentic with me when they were recruiting me. They didn't lie, you know. They kind of they shot it straight with me, and that's what I appreciated. They were like, listen, like, you know, this is what we're going to do for you. This is how you're going to help us. This is how we're going to help you. And, you know, I came back home and, like, BYU checked all my boxes, literally. I was like, you know, like, these guys literally have everything I'm looking for, everything I'm interested in. So I was like, to me, it was a no-brainer. When I left Pro Bowl, you know, I just still had to go through the recruiting process. But to me, it was a no-brainer for sure.
Let's dive into that a little bit more, Rudy. How will you help BYU specifically, and how will BYU help you? Let's start with what you bring to the program right now.
You know, coming in, I feel like I'll bring, you know, tons of experience. You know, this is going to be year 5 for me playing college basketball. I'm an older guy, obviously, so I feel like I'm going to bring a lot of leadership in the locker room, you know, from day one and stuff like that. But then, you know, on the court, I feel like I'm going to bring, like, you know, an aggressive presence offensively, defensively too. You know, I feel like I'm going to make my teammates better. I'm going to get guys shots, you know, like, you know, Trevin and Spencer. I'm going to get those guys a lot of shots, Gideon as well. And then, you know, Foose and Atiki, I'm going to try to do my best to get in the lane, you know, help the defense, like, you know, draw attention to me and then drop off for those guys to get them easy buckets. And then, you know, I feel like I'm just going to play really hard because it's my last go around in college. Like, I'm going to give it all I got. That much I do know. And yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. Something I wanted to ask you about. With this being your last year, you'll be in Provo for one season. What do you want out of this year? Like, if you could write the script, what's this year turn out to be?
Honestly, I just want to do something special. You know, one of the goals of mine were obviously to play in March Madness tournament, and BYU did that in the 21 season. So, like, you know, that's not far-fetched. That's one of my goals. And then, you know, I kind of just want to do something special with the guys, you know, that, you know, a couple years down the road, I can look back and be like, hey, you know, my last year of school, I did that with these guys. And, you know, it's just something like I want to hang a banner or something, or get a ring, you know, just do something special, you know, like leave a legacy.
Now, you are the first in this specific offseason to take one of the open scholarship positions for Mark Pope. There are a few others, and they're busy working in the transfer portal. So, Rudy, with you leading the charge, you mentioned leadership. How much of a recruiter do you become now to try and get other guys to come to BYU with you?
Well, I committed Saturday around 2:00. I would say, you know, Saturday at 2:05, I put on my recruiting hat. You know, I kind of, you know, I put my phone to the side. Everybody was congratulating me, but I was like, let's get to work. I need some other guys, you know. So, you know, I made a joke with Coach Cougar. I said, you guys are going to have to put me on payroll because, you know, I'm working my butt off.
What do you make of – now, granted, there's obviously going to be other additions because there are spots to fill. But, you know, you mentioned guys like Foose and Tiki. What type of relationships do you have already with your teammates?
I would say I have pretty good ones, you know. On my visit, I met all the guys, you know, the guys that were still in pro, Foose, Tiki, Gideon, Trevin. And, you know, I've been texting and talking to them, you know, since the day I left. Trey as well, too, you know, shout out Trey. So, yeah, we've just kind of just been wrapping it up a little bit, you know, just talking about, you know, how fun it's going to be next year, you know, what we're looking forward to and all that. And, you know, like I said, also just been also trying to help recruit guys as well. So
you know, you're in an interesting situation in terms of, you know, you're still at Coastal, you're trying to wrap things up there, but you've committed to BYU, so you kind of got a toe in here and a toe in there. What's that sort of in between feel like right now?
It's helping me, you know, multitask and, you know, manage a lot of stuff at once because, you know, I'm looking forward to BYU, like, you know, every day I do something that involves, you know, me getting to BYU and me getting to Provo. But then I also understand that I got to finish up business here, you know, take care of stuff here. And, you know, I'm still here, so I got to live in the moment. I have no choice but to, you know, so I still got to go get my shots up. I still got to get my lifts in. So, you know, it's helped me, you know, micromanage stuff and, you know, just help me just finish the job, really.
BYU basketball transfer and now a senior, Rudi Williams, with us on BYU Sports Nation. I know that guys are hesitant to do this, but if you had to compare your skill set to, let's say, somebody at the top of the game in the NBA, because BYU fans always want to know, well, what type of player is he? Who would you compare your skill set to in the NBA?
I'll try to say this as humble as I can. And, like, I'm not comparing myself to him, but, you know, I really try to do a lot of stuff that, you know, Chris Paul does. You know, I study him a lot. You know, I try my best to emulate what he can do on the floor. So he would be, I would say Chris Paul.
Is that why you wear number 3?
Honestly, yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do next year in Provo. I might stick with the 3. I might go to 0 because that was one of, like, my original numbers growing up, but I don't know, I'll see. But CP definitely, you know, I study his book a lot.
So does that mean right now maybe you're pulling for the Suns in the NBA because of CP3? I know you grew up near Toronto, so you're a Raptors guy. Where do your NBA affiliations lie?
Well, the Raptors got bumps pretty early.
Yeah.
So, yes, but I'm going to still go out there and say that I've been pulling for Phoenix, you know, to win. Right now, you know, they couldn't steal one in Dallas, but they're coming back to Phoenix for, Game 5.
Yep.
And yeah, I really feel like I want Chris Paul to get one so bad, but I really feel like they have the entire team, you know, to get the job done. They got all the pieces.
Rudy, obviously BYU fans very excited to get you on campus and get you going with Mark Pope and the guys. So when will that happen? What's the timeline like for your arrival in Provo?
Nothing is like for sure right now, but to my knowledge, and after I spoke with all the coaches, I should be getting to Provo at the end of June. So, like, you know, around midway through the summer.
All right. Well, over the next 6 or 7 weeks, we're going to send you some BYU Sports Nation karma to, you know, as you said, multitask, get everything taken care of in Myrtle Beach and get to Provo okay. In the meantime, hopefully you can trash talk in a major way against those Coastal guys and show them what's up.
I mean, after this, I'm headed straight to the gym. We're going to put some more pickups, so I'm definitely going to
go.
My wise up when I make a 3 or something like that. So
love it. Rudy, great to meet you. Great to have you on the show, and we'll see you again soon back here in Studio B.
Sir, appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, got Rudy. It. BYU basketball commit Rudi Williams on BYU Sports Nation.
Okay, I was excited for him when he committed. I'm even more excited now that we've talked to him. Look, and major props for having his own poster in the background, by the way.
Why not?
I love that.
And his jerseys, right?
I love that.
Yes.
That is amazing.
He knows who he is. He knows what he brings to BYU. I love how self-assured he is of what he is going to do for this BYU basketball team. That's a tough question to answer. Hey, what are you going to do? How are you going to help this team be better?
Well, but look, I mean, the question I asked him in terms of what you want out of this year, it's like he just wants to do something special. Whether it's he wants to be able to look back on this 1 year in Provo and it's like, yeah, we did that. I was a part of that. I couldn't have thought of a better answer than that. It was perfect.
Yeah, no, clearly mature, will take on, as he said, a leadership role, as some experience that BYU so desperately needs at the point guard position. And he emulates Chris Paul. You know, say what you will about Chris Paul. That dude is an unbelievable point guard.
Yeah. Look, if he wants to emulate Chris Paul on the court, I have no problem with that. Feel free, Rudy. We welcome it.
You mean shoot like 70%, you know, from the field and like never turn the ball over and dish out a million assists?
In game 4. He had a lot of turnovers in game 4.
All right.
And he fouled out. All right, coming up, a Top 5 Tuesday with the best almost plays. We'll explain.
And what do we think about the 2025 BYU football schedule as it stands right now? Because in a way, it almost feels complete. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
4 expert builders have been given.
Now this is entertainment. Kind people working hard.
Those power tools really stress me out.
Back in my day, we didn't have power tools. We had sticks, and stones, and polio.
Great. Now I'm thinking about polio.
I've had it 3 times.
Oh no.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Coming up on Saturday, May 21st, BYU Sports Nation will be broadcasting live from the BYU Fan Fest at Sandtown Park in St. George. Come watch a live broadcast. Jerem will be wearing that wig of the show at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 Mountain, or you can watch the show on BYU TV and the app.
Well, let's be honest, he's never looked better. So, I kid. Come on now. It's all love. It's all love. And by the way, as we were watching that Jaron Hall touchdown highlight in the matte royal blue helmet on the way in from break, there's still a halo on top of that helmet, Jason.
That's because he's angelic.
You can still see halo. Oh, okay. Touche.
Come back from that, my friend.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation, live from Studio B. Reports from FB Schedules have BYU and Hawaii canceling the 2024 and 2025 home and home series. I kind of hate this because I saw like a trip to Hawaii potentially in 2025. I was like, yes, let's go. It's going away. This based off Hawaii removing BYU from the schedules on their website. So that means that in a way, Jason, the 2025 schedule, assuming the Cougars will play a 9-game Big 12 slate.
Yeah, all of that is based on the 9-game conference schedule.
Is set with 3 non-conference games. The 3 games that remain are at Utah State, Stanford in Provo, and Utah in Provo. Do you like a 2025 schedule that features 11 Power Fives and 1 Group of 5 that is at Utah State?
Look, do I like it? I mean, it certainly sounds daunting, but I like the teams that are there. I do like the team Utah, Stanford, Utah State. That if you're going to play some teams out of conference, those are some pretty good teams to play, obviously. I think what's interesting, if you look at it, the Utah game is a TBA. There's a pretty decent chance that could be the season opener that year in 2025, which I know a lot of people feel like it should be the opening game of the season every year. But that allows for Utah to be the opening game. You play Stanford on the 13th, and then you have the conference weekend at Utah State. and then you still have your 9-game conference schedule. I don't mind this. I don't know if it will stay that way in terms of its difficulty, at least on paper, because obviously we're talking about teams that we don't know what they're going to look like in 2025. Whether it stays that way, we don't know, but I don't have an issue with it. I do like the look of it.
Here's what's going to happen. Stanford is going to go bye-bye. Okay, that game is not going to happen. Again, this is pure speculation, but based on what has already been happening with USC going away, because USC and Stanford were kind of the team and game that worked together with BYU to fit at the end of the schedule. Right. This one is in September, as you pointed out, but I feel like that game is inevitably going to go away, and it will be replaced by an FCS team.
And that also makes sense.
It should be.
Well, and I can't remember if it was Jerem that I did the show with or if it was with you, but we had this discussion in terms of looking at a schedule and which one do you want to come off the schedule. And look, that is a part of this. You do have to, and look, we have seen kind of the blueprint with how Utah has handled this, having gone into the Pac-12 over a decade ago. They did this very same thing, and they did it because it makes sense. You know how difficult your conference schedule is going to be, so you don't want to beat yourself up before you get to it. So you are still going to play good teams in your non-conference if it's 3 games, which is what we assume. But you also are going to probably throw in an FCS team almost every year.
Now, the other thing that could happen is maybe BYU doesn't want to play in Logan. Maybe they don't want to play on the road against Utah State. And I know Utah State fans are, I'm scared to come to Logan. You know what? BYU is going to play 11 Power 5s, and now Utah State is supposed to be the easy game, and it's a road game in Logan. No, this is, as we pointed out on the show a few days ago, this is a compliment to Utah State saying, no, BYU needs an FCS team. So maybe they keep the 2 Power 5 home games.
Yeah, because you get the home game. The Stanford one you'd be losing a home game.
Provo. And then you get rid of a road game at Utah State. So you're playing 7 home games and then 5 road games, all in conference. We'll see. It depends on how the 9-game schedule shakes out. Is BYU going to have 4 home conference games and 5 road games, or 5 home conference games and 4 road? We don't know. But my best guess is Stanford goes bye-bye and an FCS team is brought on, and then they will assess the location of the Utah State game.
So really quick, a lot of these schedules are starting to see these teams drop off, and you're starting to get down to about 3, sometimes 4, where you still have to drop one off. 2024 and 2026 still look like the 2 years that have the most work to do. You still currently, according to FB schedules, have 7 teams on your 2024, and then in 2026 you have 8. So those are the 2 years that probably have the most work to still do.
All right. Tom Homo's busy man.
Yes, he is. All right, coming up, our rise and shout-outs to some Cougars dominating the awards.
And a Top 5 Tuesday looking back at the best plays that almost were. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
There are things happening in Seaburg. Explosions, dead fish.
Seaburg, come for the beach, stay for the radiation. I'm worried that the dead fish might have something to do with element 126.
We need to find out who's behind all of this.
We can't just let them get away with it.
So how do we get inside and get proof?
You want to take down Green Corp? So do I.
Friends don't abandon each other.
What I did was wrong. If you'll give me another chance, I won't mess up.
I know what it's like to love someone so much you'd do anything for them.
We have to get in there and put a stop to whatever they're doing.
And if we can't?
Then we go to plan B.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU Radio apps.
Or download the podcast. Just Google BYU Sports Nation Podcast. Don't forget, subscribe, rate, and review.
Which brings us to Top 5 Tuesday, presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing. This week, we take a look back at the BYU football season and the plays that almost were top plays but fell just short.
At number 5, we go back to Washington State, where we had 2 almost top plays, but Malik Moore decided one interception was enough on the day. He had 2 great looks at interceptions, both on the same drive, but he dropped them both. However, it all worked out in the end for Malik as he would swing an NIL deal with Wingstop, in part because of those drops.
Malik! Listen, maybe it would have been a little bit of a sweeter deal if he had 3 interceptions.
Spicier deal, maybe.
Love Malik. Ooh, nicely played. Number 4, Tyler Algier. Doing his thing, running crazy against Utah State. We thought this was a 68-yard touchdown run. Run, Tyler! But he's clipped out at the 1-yard line. His elbow hit just before the ball crossed the plane. He had no problem punching in 2 plays later for the score, but almost a great long run.
Number 3, the quarterback, the angelic one, Jaron Hall, went sprinting down the sideline for what was going to be a near game-sealing touchdown.
Oh, snap!
But Jaron barely steps out of bounds, bringing the ball back 48 yards on what would have been a 66-yard touchdown run. Jaron couldn't believe it when he turned around. Stepping out of bounds didn't turn out to be the worst thing, however, for the Cougars. They would be able to drain an extra 4.5 minutes off the clock and extend the lead to 2 scores on a Jake Oldroyd field goal.
I thought the stadium was going to lift off the ground when he ran in for this. And, it's all good. All good. At number 2, this is more of an almost great play for Arizona State, but it just gives us a reason to show what Tyler Algier did one more time. Jaron Hall fumbles the snap. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Lopini Katoa, hey, behind the back pass. And then Lopini picks it up, and what do you call this? Do we call this the dipsy-do?
The whoop?
Yeah,
Chris Berman, yeah.
That's an incredibly athletic play. Yeah. And a heads-up play by Jaron to be like, hey, I see you out of the corner of my eye, behind the back.
Yeah. And our number 1 almost play, we'll keep it in the same game. Arizona State almost had a pick 6 that would have given Arizona State the lead and all the momentum. But Tyler Algier had other plans, delivering the top play of the year and an almost top play for the Sun Devils. Arizona State almost came back to beat the Cougars, but BYU would win 27-17 and give us one of the greatest plays in BYU football history.
Now that was
Look
a play.
At that.
It was an almost play for Arizona State. Our question of the day, which BYU team will rise to prominence the fastest in the Big 12 and why? Our elite voice of the day, presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Benjamin David Nelson says men's volleyball, because they already have the best team in the Big 12. They're the only team in the Big 12. They play in the MPSF. Well played, David.
Very well played.
Today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
How about what's going on at the Miller Sports Complex? You have Pitcher and Player of the Week on the softball side and Player of the Week on the men's side.
Outstanding. Our thanks to today's guest, newest basketball commit, Rudi Williams. Conversation continues 24/7. Hashtag BYUSN for Jason. I am Spencer. Shout out to McKenna Bull. We'll see you tonight for BYU softball and BYU baseball. Go Cougs.